You're listening to the Paul Young Podcast.
Well, hello again, everybody. This is going to be story time, probably a two-parter. I never know when I start one of these things how it may digress into some kind of rabbit trail, which, if you know me, is pretty common. This is a story that goes back, some of you know this, a lot of you don't, back to the year 2000, and that's 5 years before I wrote The Shack. The year 2000 was, I don't know if you remember all the Y2K craziness that was going on. We had apocalyptic, eschatological, end times kinds of rumors, and people were storing up stuff because of the end of the world. And you know what's funny is that if you go back to the year 999, before the year 1000 turned, same stuff was going on. Now, it didn't have the technology and all, but it was the same stuff. Anyway, I digress. Year 2000, we were living in Boring, Oregon. It's actually the name of the town, named after, I think, the founder, Bob Boring, but I could be wrong. Oh, and I digress again. This is a funny thing, not funny all the time, but when you begin to tell stories, you remember it as you remember it. And, that happens to me a fair bit, is that somebody will correct me. So most of this is true, but it's all the way that I remember it. But, age and distance and all those things kind of create a realm of fiction around the stories that we tell each other. Some tend to get better and some tend to get worse. Some of the details get lost. Some details are added, I'm sure. So with that apology, this is how I remember it. The year 2000 for our family was a little bit sparse financially. I was working the job as hard as I could. And I don't know if you remember, but Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was kind of the rage. And it was so unlike any of the other television shows that had done, questions and you get prizes and all that. It was an anomaly, mostly because of the way that it was structured. There was big money involved in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, I was busy and I didn't watch it much, but my kids loved it and were quite involved, cheering for whoever. Now, the structure of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was quite fascinating. That is, you had three helps. Let me think if I remember them. You could phone a friend, you could ask the audience, and you could knock two of the four options off. I don't remember what they called that. Some of you will know, but it doesn't really matter. So you had three options to use anytime that you wanted. You started at, $100 or $50. I don't even remember what you started at. And then you climbed the ladder, basically doubling. But the big money that you were trying to get to, if I remember right, was $34,000. $34,000, and then it went to 64,000, and then it went to 125, and then to 250, then 500, then $1 million. So you started really low, but if you got one wrong, you were out. So one evening, my daughter Amy, who was only 16, I think 16 at the time, she hands me the phone. She said, "Dad, quick, answer these questions." And I didn't realize what she was doing, so just blind trust. I listened to the question, and it was really hard. Using your phone from 1 to 4, put these female blues singers in order of birth. That was the first of 3 questions. And that's a hard question. But it happened to be at a time in my life where I knew a lot of information that really wasn't relevant to anything. I just had piled up all kinds of trivia. So I answered the first question. The second one was no easier. And I answered the second question. And the third question was really hard. And I answered the third question. And then it said, you would then be put into a pool and they would call you and give you 5 questions. And if you answered that right, then by Friday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they would call you and tell you if you'd been selected for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I'm looking at Amy going like, "Amy, what is this?" And she's like, "Well, Dad, I'm not old enough, so I handed you the phone." What I found out later is if you answered any of those 3 questions wrong, you got cut off. But I answered all 3 of them right. So that meant that they were going to call me back. This is early in the week, like on a Monday or something. And they were going to call me back and ask me 5 questions. So it was a curiosity, If you ever want a future trip, The gateway drug, I think I've said this, the gateway drug is buying a lottery ticket. Well, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is not that far behind, except you get to participate. And so I didn't think about it. Now, Wednesday, I believe, they called me back and they had 5 questions. And I answered the questions and they said, all right, we're going to put you into another pool of, I don't know, a couple thousand, 3,000. I don't remember what it was. A lot of people. And we're going to draw 10 names, 11 names. I don't even remember how many people were in the circle. It's been a while, 2000. Plus, I've got this seizure disorder that doesn't help me at all in terms of dates and people's names and things like that. You'll have to bear with me. But I do remember this. They were going to draw another 10 names, let's say, because I think that's how many people were in the circle. Maybe it's 12. But out of this big group of everybody who answered the 5 questions right, so at the end of 5, the gal says, well, you're going to go into this pool of 20,000 people, and we're going to draw out, let's say, 12 names. And if you are one of those that they draw, then this weekend, we're going to fly you to New York, but we'll call you. I had the presence of mind to say, so are they going to call us on Eastern Standard Time? Because I knew by then that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was being shot in New York City. Or were they going to call us on Eastern Standard Time, or are they going to call us on Pacific Time? And she says, we are going to call you at 1 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time, which would be 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock in the morning in Boring, Oregon. So, by the way, it was fun to always, people, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Boring, Oregon. They thought it was an adjective rather than a noun. So anyway, I don't hear from them. I knew that I made it into the pool of 16,000 people, and they're going to draw 12 names, and whoever gets drawn goes to New York City. But 10 o'clock comes past, and we were going to go camping that weekend anyway, so it was like, yeah, well, 10 o'clock happened. Not a big deal. Obviously, we didn't make the cut. So that was on Friday at 10 o'clock, and I'm not paying any attention. I get a call at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Well, they had told me the wrong information, and I got picked. This is in the heyday of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis Philbin. And they were doing shows 2 and 3 times a week, and it was wild. So I get a call at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and they said, congratulations, we are going to fly you out tomorrow to New York City. And you get to be a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And by the way, you're allowed to bring one person with you. But, the family was already going camping. So Kim said, you better go to New York. And I said, well, who am I going to take? So we decided to take Chad. Chad is our oldest. He's a very calm human being and very smart human being. So we decided, yeah, let's take Chad. I'll take Chad. And Kim will take the kids and go camping. So we fly out, and they're going to record. I may have the days wrong here. Sorry, Chad. But we're going to fly out. We get to New York and get to the hotel about 11:30, 12 o'clock, really late. And the heating system was malfunctioning, so it couldn't stop heating. So our room was like 95, 100 degrees. And then you were supposed to show up and show the filming people what you were going to wear the next morning when they did the rehearsal, which was first, and then they were going to shoot 2 episodes. I ended up showing up at the film people, the TV people, at like 2 in the morning. And I am beat tired. So they passed my clothes to say, that's fine. That'll work. We're supposed to show up for the kind of little rehearsal thing at 6 in the morning. So I haven't gotten any sleep at night. Then they're going to shoot 2 episodes, and we're the second one. So we get to sit and watch the first one being filmed, and then after that, they're going to shoot the second one. Well, that's great. We get picked up and taken to the studio. I'm beat. I'm so tired. And we did this little rehearsal thing. And anytime I tried, I not only didn't make it, the buzzer didn't win, but when I guessed it, I was wrong. And they were easy questions. I was getting confused in putting the order of A, B, C, and D. Chad gave me a little hug and said, Dad, you'll do better when it's the real thing. Well, good. I'm so glad. Thank you, Chad, for believing in me. Well, we had a meal, and Chad and I sat with this dad and daughter. The daughter is the one that was on. Very smart girl. In fact, she had won, I think, every round of the rehearsal. So it's like, yeah, she's going to do okay. So here we are. We go and sit and watch it. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but when you're doing the show, they have a holdover from the last show. You know, somebody who made it to $200 or something like that, and the buzzer went off, or maybe they made it to $25,000 or whatever it was, whatever the numbers were. And the buzzer went off, and so they're going to be the first one on the next show. It's called a holdover. Well, we had, the first group had a holdover, and that person takes a chunk of the time for the show, and then they start with the people that actually are to be on that episode. And so we watch it, and I think the person made it to 64,000. And here's the thing. If you make it to 34,000, then the next one is a free one, because the worst you can do at that point was if you missed the 64,000, you'd go back to 32,000. And Kim said to me before I left, whatever you do, make it to 32,000, because that would have helped us out huge. And so she's like, if you get in the hot seat, make it to 32,000. So that's, at the back of my mind. Well, we're watching the other group and they're doing great, and they have a holdover to our group. So we're going to record this, and we're going to end up with a holdover from the first session in the morning. Now, it's already in the afternoon. Regis is a bit tired. Everybody's a bit tired. And we find out that we're the last show. The reason they've been doubling up these shows is because they want to take the first break that the staff and the film guys and gals and the lighting people and Regis, they haven't had a break for like a year. This thing's been so crazy. And so they're going to take their first 30-day break after our episode. So we're the last episode before they take a 30-day break. So that sets the stage for what happens next. And we will pick this up in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Part 2. Thank you for listening. If you would like to contact or connect with us with inquiries and questions, comments, suggestions, stories, and more, please visit paulyoungpodcast.com. There you will find resources and notes related to any particular episode. Today, participate with love, do the next right thing, and trust the ripples.